One of the things I'm really interested in is we've been left these traditions, these kind of accounts and diaries of our ancestors prior to the advent of kind of modern science. Those were the only accounts we had. And it's interesting that they kind of talk with one voice in many ways. They talk about humanity being very different at one time. Not so much physically, maybe to some degree, but more our psychology or our sense of self really was very, very different. And that began to change over a long period of time, quite a long time ago. And there's really talk of kind of the emergence of a second sense of self, something that we would relate more to our current human state, and that second sense of self began to slowly dominate, and this very different sense of self began to disappear, and we were left with what we now recognize as being human, being our dominant and normal state, and this other state is now almost disappeared. It's very hard to access. And I'm looking for correlations in the neurological literature, really the focus on the kind of split brain studies, left-right brain, which a lot of people have heard of. I think there's some fascinating data there. It's really telling us the same story, only we've got it back to front. We're looking at this information, and of course inevitably we're looking at it with one side of our brain, and it's coming up with crazy conclusions. You change your perspective a little bit, and suddenly it's telling the same stories, these ancient traditions, the psychology, the sort of traits that our normal state has, fear, delusion, constantly lying to ourselves as background fear. All those things are echoed in the ancient traditions. So I'm saying the neurological data, the psychological data is telling the same story, and that seems to be corroborated with the evolutionary theory. Again, this idea that we were forest dwelling, naked. Some of these traditions are quite clear about that. You know, they even talk about fruit being really important, and the basic pharmacology and the evolutionary or the molecular biology kind of says the same sort of thing. Fruit is full of these compounds that change the way our hormones work, and in turn change the way the DNA is read. So there's a whole bunch of mechanisms there that look like they could have been doing something really important. So, you know, this is what I'm investigating. Were they telling the same story? Does it give us some insight into how our brain evolved, and maybe why we're in trouble now?